Many planets in the Star Wars universe had a far greater impact on galactic history than their small populations or remoteness would suggest. Tatooine, despite being a barren desert, produced two of the galaxy's most legendary heroes. Korriban, desolate and forgotten though it was the birth world of the Sith. Endor, a small moon far from galactic civilization, was the site of one of history's most important battles. The planet we'll be discussing today was also seen as insignificant in the grand scheme of things, yet it was where many of the old Sith Wars' greatest heroes began their quests. The planet Taris played a crucial role in the course of two wars, and it suffered dearly for it. In this video, we'll be telling its story.
Attention, Sergeant on deck!
Taris was located in the northern outer rim, not far from Mandalore. When it was discovered by a small band of human colonists 5,300 years before the Battle of Yavin, it was dominated by forests and oceans and home to an abundance of natural life. Hoping to preserve the planet's beauty, the first settlers built their colony underground. The first Tarisian settlement was largely automated and self-sufficient, and it ignored the outside galaxy, content to exist in isolation. But just a century later, another, much larger group of colonists discovered Taris, and they built their own settlement. The newest settlement rapidly expanded, spreading over entire continents and the original self-sufficient colony. By 5100 BBY, every single landmass on Taris was urbanized, though its oceans remained untouched, as they were the only source of food on the planet. By 4600 BBY, Taris' population had grown to the point where they had to build another city on top of the first. 200 years later, yet another level was constructed, followed by a fourth in 4300 BBY. From the top down, these levels were named the Upper City, the Middle City, the Lower City, and the Undercity. By the time the Upper City was completed, Taris had joined the Republic, which allowed Taris' economy and its population to grow even more rapidly. The Republic was beginning to press northward into the Outer Rim at the time, and it found Taris particularly useful as a launch point for expeditions. This brought unprecedented prosperity to Taris, which some began to consider the Coruscant of the Outer Rim. For a century and a half, the planet was one of the most prosperous in the galaxy. This prosperity came with a dark underside, however. The planet's wealthy nobles profited immensely from Taris' rise, but the majority of the planet's population was instead kept in crippling poverty. The Upper City was reserved for the wealthy and their servants, and the poor were banned from visiting it by law. Some lower-class Tarisians were fortunate enough to be able to live in the Middle City, but those that were truly poor were instead relegated to the Lower City, which became a vast slum. The Undercity was abandoned due to infestations of vicious Rakghouls and Gamorrean slavers. Furthermore, Taris' seeming prosperity brought many non-humans to the planet, which upset many upper-class Tarisians who were almost all human and rabidly humanocentric. Non-humans suffered severe discrimination on Taris, largely due to fears that they would destroy Tarisian culture. Tarisian law banned all non-humans, with a handful of exceptions, from traveling the Upper City without a permit, and regulated most of them to the slums of the Lower City. In 4156 BBY, Taris met with a bit of bad luck. Local trade routes were remapped to be more efficient, and the new routes bypassed Taris entirely in favor of other growing colonies which were less crowded and had less cultural baggage. The Republic began to abandon Taris, in part due to its segregation laws, and the planet began to see a sharp decline. As support from the Republic fell, the planet was forced to rely more and more on local industry to keep its economy afloat. This only made matters worse, however, as individual runoff ended up poisoning Taris' oceans and destroying the planet's food supply. This resulted in a massive famine. When this famine broke out, the Tarisian upper class hoarded all the food supplies left on the planet, leaving the lower classes to starve and die. As you might expect, this didn't go over well with the Tarisian poor. In 4056 BBY, the lower classes rose up and began a massive civil war which engulfed the entire planet. Vast swaths of Taris' cities were leveled and millions of Tarisians died. It was around this time that the location of the original self-sufficient Tarisian colony was lost, passing into legend among the Tarisian poor as the Promised Land. The Tarisian nobles eventually won the civil war and banished the leaders of the rebellion to the Undercity, condemning them to lives of filth and misery. Some of these outcasts banded together and founded scattered villages in the Undercity, but most soon perished from harsh conditions and Rukil attacks. After the end of the civil war, the Tarisian nobles sought to rejoin the Republic, hoping for support in rebuilding the planet. In the years after the Great Sith War, the Republic allowed Taris to rejoin, despite the fact its segregation laws remained in place. A degree of prosperity returned to the planet, albeit only for the upper class. Wealthy companies such as Zerka Corporation began to invest in Taris, and the Jedi took an interest in Taris as well, establishing a small enclave on the world in the hope that the presence of Jedi would loosen the planet's repressive government up a little bit. Taris also attracted attention from less legitimate investors as well. The Exchange, one of the most powerful criminal organizations in the galaxy, moved its headquarters to Taris shortly before the Mandalorian Wars, setting up shop in the estate of crime lord Davik Kang. Both the Exchange and Zerka Corporation established relations with swoop gangs in the lower city, giving them weapons and supplies for turf wars in exchange for holding an annual swoop race. This race, the Taris season opener, became one of the galaxy's most popular races, despite the fact that it was literally run by gangs, and both the Exchange and Zerka made bank from it. By 3976 BBY, two gangs in particular had come to dominate the swoop circuit and the lower city in general. These were the Hidden Becks, a band of Robin Hood types that, by and large, were pretty chill, and the Black Volkers, who woke up one day and chose violence. The two gangs fought a long and brutal turf war, which the Taris Civil Authority generally did nothing about. That year was also the beginning of the Mandalorian Wars, the start of which didn't bode well for Taris. As we mentioned earlier, Taris was pretty much on the border of Mandalorian space, and so it was rightfully wary of Mandalorian aggression in the Outer Rim. For years, however, the Mandalorians ignored Taris and the Republic, instead choosing to ravage remote worlds that the Republic knew little about. The Jedi Covenant, the small group of Jedi that had set up shop in Taris' Jedi Tower, repeatedly reassured Taris that the Mandalorians were probably not a threat. Despite this, the Republic prepared for war with the Mandalorians anyway. By 3964 BBY, Taris had come under the protection of a massive Republic defense fleet led by one Saul Karath. This fleet was the vanguard of the much larger Republic security cordon, the Jebel Vanquo Tarnith line, which lay between Republic and Mandalorian space. The bulk of the Republic Navy was assigned to this line, where it engaged in a constant standoff with the Mandalorians. Then, the Sith hit the fan. In 3964 BBY, the Masters of the Jedi Covenant massacred their Padawans and blamed the whole thing on Zane Carrick, the only survivor. A manhunt for Carrick followed, throwing Taris into chaos. The powerful corporations present on the planet withdrew their funding over the Padawan massacre, citing bad PR, and both the economy and government on Taris all but collapsed. The Jedi withdrew from the Republic, followed by the Republic fleet. Shortly afterwards, a Mandalorian fleet under Cassius Fett smashed the Jebel Vanquo Tarnith line and conquered Taris, bringing the Mandalorian Wars to the Republic at last. Taris became a Mandalorian stronghold. Fett and his lieutenants faced resistance from the lower city swoop gangs, however, who rallied behind the Hidden Becks to fight the Mandalorians. In response, the Mandalorians allied with Exchange slavers to terrorize the lower city. This proved to be a fatal mistake for the Mandalorian occupiers, however. When Jedi Knights Revan and Malak joined the fight against the Republic, they and their followers made a point of liberating Taris and freeing its slaves, breaking Fett's hold on the region. One of the slaves Revan freed, a Cathar girl named Juhani, was so inspired by these Jedi that she traveled to Dantooine and ended up becoming a Jedi herself. After the Mandalorian Wars, Taris again rejoined the Republic. By that point, the planet was a shadow of its former self. At its height, it had a population of over 60 billion. By the time the Jedi Civil War broke out, it had barely a tenth of that. Taurus's planetary government, with Republic backing, began to rebuild itself, but by and large, the Exchange became the de facto rulers of the planet. The Republic maintained a military base on the world and again pushed for the ending of Taurus's segregation laws, but as a new Sith Empire threatened to conquer the galaxy, justice for the Taurizian lower classes fell to the wayside. The Jedi Civil War quickly turned against the Republic, which began to hemorrhage territory. Even the defeat of Darth Revan did little to slow the Sith advance, and by 3956 BBY, the Sith had taken most of the Outer Rim. As Darth Malak, the new Dark Lord of the Sith Empire, moved to complete his conquest, the Republic decided to make a stand at Taurus, which was the last remaining Republic stronghold in the Outer Rim. Famed Republic war heroes Bastila Shan and Karth Onasi led a small fleet to Taurus to reinforce the garrison there, but Malak and a Sith battle fleet ambushed and destroyed the Republic task force. The Republic flagship, the Endar Spire, was destroyed over Taurus, but several members of its crew escaped to the planet's surface. The survivors included Bastila and Karth, as well as the amnesiac Revan, who had been mind-wiped and given a new identity by the Jedi Council. Following the battle, the Sith occupied Taurus and established a quarantine of the planet, hell-bent on capturing Bastila Shan. Sith troops took over the upper city and a blockade was established above the planet, which prevented any ships from leaving without Sith authorization. This blockade was overseen by Darth Malak personally, as well as now Admiral Saw Karath. This occupation posed a problem for Karth, Revan and Bastila, but not an insurmountable one. At length, Karth and Revan were able to find Bastila with the help of the hidden Beks. They and their companions escaped Taurus with the help of Canderous Ordo, who allied with them to steal Davik's ship, the Ebon Hawk, for the escape. The group fled Taurus just in time. Darth Malak was growing impatient with his troops' inability to find Bastila and ordered Admiral Karath to begin an orbital bombardment of
the bombardment, Commander. Wipe this pathetic planet from the face of the galaxy.
The crew of the Ebon Hawk escaped the bombardment, but most of Taurus wasn't so lucky. The Sith completely destroyed the planet-wide city, killing virtually everyone on the planet. Taurus became a wasteland, ruined and abandoned. Over the course of the next few millennia, a few attempts were made to rebuild the planet, and by the time of the Clone Wars, Taurus was again home to a vast city, but it was still a shadow of its former self, unable to reclaim its past glory. So that's the story of Taurus, one of the most important planets from the Knights of the Old Republic era. But what do you think? Are there other worlds you'd like us to tell the stories of? Let us know all that and more in the comments section below, and as always guys, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.